All right, guys, by the way, tomorrow, all of chapter 1's homework needs to turn in by the end of the day tomorrow. Otherwise, it will be zeros. Now, what we're talking about today is more properties of parabolas and different key aspects of a parabola. One of the things that we have with parabolas is an axis of symmetry. It's a line that cuts the parabola in half, and the sides on either side of this axis of symmetry are going to be the same. So the y values, as we move away from it, will mirror each other. It cuts it in half. So they're mirror images of either side. So for this one here that they gave us, x equals h is the axis of symmetry. So with our parabolas that open up or down, the vertical line x equals h would be the axis of symmetry. This point, h comma k, is the vertex. It's the highest or lowest point. Now we use the form h comma k because it's in vertex form. Vertex form, h comma k will be the vertex. And the reason we call this version, or this way that we write the equation of the parabola vertex form, is because it gives us the vertex of the parabola, our h and k values. Vertex form equals a times x. So the reason we call this vertex form is because the hk values are the two parts of the vertex. Now we do have to be careful with the h value because in the form it's x minus h, so we do have to flip the sign as it comes out. So if it's x plus 3, h is negative 3. If it's x minus 3, h is positive 3. We do have to be paying attention to that there. But we have the vertex and the axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry, x equals h. So the x value of the vertex is going to match that there. And this axis of symmetry will always go through the vertex. If it opens up or down, it's going to cut through it. There are parabolas that open to the left or to the right. Again, that axis of symmetry is going to cut through that vertex point. So let's see how this looks in an actual problem. So we're given this equation here. F of x equals negative 2, parentheses, x plus 3 squared plus 4. We want to find the vertex and axis of symmetry. Now for this one here, I'm going to write the general form underneath. Is our a, parentheses, x minus h squared plus k. To find the vertex, vertex is the point h comma k. So for us here, vertex, to find the vertex, we need to find the value of h and k. So looking at the formula here, k is nice. Plus 4. K is our plus k. Whatever the value that we have added to it is the value of k. So here the value of k is positive 4. Now we also need to find h. H would indeed be negative 3, because we have x plus 3. The general form is x minus h. The only way for us to turn it from x minus h to x plus 3 is if the value of h is also negative. So it's negative 3, because our x minus negative 3 is the same as our x plus 3, so h is negative 3. Okay, questions on how we found h and k? Be good with finding h and k. Because the vertex and these next two parts are going to go pretty quickly, because since we have h and k, vertex is h comma k. H is negative 3, k is 4. So the vertex is negative 3, 4. That's all we do. Now, if we wanted to graph it, I would come over here and plot -3, 4. This here is our vertex. And graph. Axis of symmetry. So for this here, again, the formula for axis of symmetry with this here, x equals h. Well, we already know h's value. So x is equal to -3. And if we were to plot this axis of symmetry, it would be this entire line here, because the axis of symmetry goes through the vertex and goes all the way up and down. This is our axis of symmetry. Questions on how we found the vertex or axis of symmetry? We good with this here? Now the purpose, and the main purpose with this here, especially if we're having to graph these by hand or do the graph by hand, is helping us plot points. Because to graph a line, we need 2 points. You need 2 points to be able to graph an equation of a line. Parabolas, you need 5 to actually get a full picture of the graph. So normally, especially when you graph a parabola, we need x and y values. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And always the big question is which 5 x values do we pick? We always start with the vertex. Vertex is always going to be the middle point, and we go 2 points to either side of it. So since -3 is our point, we would also take -2 and -1. Then we'd have -4 and -5. We would have these points here. To graph it. And then we're just plugging these points into the equation to find our values. Because if we did -2, we'd have -2 parentheses -2 plus 3 squared plus 4. I just plug -2 in for x. And then we'd find the y value. Now, all right, we'd have y equals. Is anything on the right side of that equal sign a variable? No, we have -2 parentheses -2 plus 3 close parentheses squared plus 4. I can type that entire thing into the calculator exactly as it is and get an answer. We don't have to do this by hand. They made you do this by hand because a part of the standardized test for middle school is that you can actually do order of operations. -2 parentheses -2 plus 3 close parentheses squared plus 4 is 2. So one of our other points would be -2, 2. Then we can repeat this process, but instead of an x value of -2, we have an x value of -1. Say -2 parentheses -1 plus 3 squared plus 4 is -4. So we'd have -1, -4. So we feel comfortable, at least we have an understanding of how we got this, yes? Or the -2 or 2 and -4? So if you look at this here, This is the equation that we started out with, minus the fact that instead of having x, I plug -2 in. So to be able to graph it, we need 5 points. So x equals -3, y equals 4. So that's the vertex. That's the highest or lowest point. Vertex is always the highest or lowest. So we start there and then go 2 out to either side to get 5 points. Just so we can graph it. Now, the reason we start at the vertex, and this is what's coming up next, is there's a specific thing that works this way and works nicely this way. So I started here as my first point. I didn't have to plug it in because -3, 4 is the vertex. It's a point. I don't have to check that. I went 1 to the right. -2, plugged it into the equation, found the y value was 2. Then went 1 more, -1, found the y value of 4. That's all we've done so far. So we have 3 points. I still need 2 more, yes? That's where the axis of symmetry comes in. And what's nice about it is that the y value of the point 1 to the left, y value is also going to be 1 to the right. So that tells us at -4, the y value is 2. And at -5, the y value is -4. No. And what that gives us is a graph of the parabola, because we need 5 points. Okay. We kind of get that there, yes? And bless you. I said at the beginning, graphing, I'm not going to put a big emphasis on it because of this right here. We have access to these graphing calculators, and here, figure this out, -2, parentheses, x plus 3, close parentheses squared, plus 4. This is the equation that we had to start with, yes? Graph. There's the graph, and that looks about what we had graphed, yes? Okay. X, Y values, let's see. Second table. -3, 4 was our vertex. And we do have that there, yes? And if we go 1 up, -4, 2, we did find that. -5, -4, -6, -14, -7, -28. It gives us all those. And if we look going down the other direction, the y values do mirror that. That's the nice part about the axis of symmetry, is the y values to the left and right of them are going to mirror each other. But again, we can do it all by hand. We did it. This graphing calculator did it all for us too. So there are a lot of nice things the graphing calculator will do, which save us a lot of time. But the main thing I want you to be able to pick out is the vertex and the axis of symmetry. Being able to tell what those two are. We ready for the next one? So this one here, we're not going to worry about graphing. We just want to find the vertex and the axis of symmetry.
So the h equals 4, k equals -2. H is negative.
Yes.
Negative 4.
So when we look at this here, a parentheses, x minus h squared plus k. K is the nice value to find, because k is on the outside is exactly what it looks like. So k would indeed be -2. H. Inside that parentheses, we have x minus h. For our equation here, we have x plus 4. The only way we can change that negative in the general form to a positive is if the value of h is negative. And it would be -4. Questions on this here? So do we feel comfortable with how we found h and k? So we can plug that in. The vertex, the h value would be -4. The k value would be -2. Axis of I'll be nice for y'all. Axis of symmetry. Y'all can abbreviate it A of S. Axis of symmetry. X equals. And in the general form for this here, H. Our H value is -4. With the axis of symmetry, I will need the X equals. We can't just write axis of symmetry -4. Because there are two types of parabolas. One, the ones we're looking at, open up or down. There are ones that open left and right, and we will be working with both with this chapter. Yes, because when it opens up or down, it's going to be H. When it opens left and right, it's going to be K. And we will have the two different forms. It's really just matching them up. Find H, K, find those values and plug them in. Questions on this here? This one here, f of x equals -3, parentheses, x plus 1 squared. We want to find the vertex. And the axis of symmetry. So our vertex is still h comma k. And the axis of symmetry, x equals h. So our h is coming from inside the parentheses. Since we have x plus 1, our plus 1 is in that corresponding h. So h comes out as -1. Since it's plus inside the parentheses, it comes out as negative. If it's negative inside the parentheses, it's going to come out as positive. Now the question is, what's k? It is indeed 0. Because I can add it there. Plus 0. It still has a value. Conversely, if it's just x squared, we don't have parentheses. It means the k value is 0. Or h value is 0. No parentheses, h value is 0. Nothing added outside or subtracted outside. K is 0. So, here, h comma k would be -1 comma 0. Axis of symmetry, x equals -1. And if we wanted to confirm this, I could grab the graphing calculator, and the first thing we do to graph is hit y equals. If there's something there, we'll clear it out. I think it was -3, yes. -3, parentheses, x plus 1, close parentheses, squared. Graph. So we do have this here, yes? If we go second graph, it'll bring up the table. Now we said the vertex was -1, 0, yes? If you go 1 point or 1 to either side, do we get the same y? Well, yeah, it's -3 and 3. And it should mirror out from there if that is indeed the vertex. The only time this won't work well is if the vertex has an x value of -1.5. It'll still mirror across it, but it's just an equal distance. Questions on how we got this here? Let's look at the next one. So we need the h and k, so x minus 2 tells us the h value is +2. Plus 5 on the outside tells us k is 5, +5. Now our vertex is still the point h comma k. So it would be 2 comma 5. Axis of symmetry. X equals h, so x equals 2. And that is it. Questions on this here? Standard form. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. This down here at the bottom is standard form. Now this here is just a step-by-step way to how we get there and how the different terms correspond to each other. That's mainly all this is, of how we get A, B, and C and how they correspond to the given formula. But if we look at this next part here, there's a few things, key characteristics. If A is greater than 1, or if A is greater than 0, if A is positive, number in front of x squared is positive, it opens up. If the A value is less than 0, it's negative. It opens down as that reflection across the x-axis. Still holds true for A. The graph is narrower if A, absolute value of A is greater than 1. And wider when A is, absolute value of A is less than 1. If it's between 0 and 1, it's a vertical shrink. If it's greater than 1, it's a vertical stretch. That still holds true. The axis of symmetry and vertex are a little bit different. Not by much, but just a little bit. Vertex is the point, negative b over 2a, comma, f of negative b over 2a. And the axis of symmetry, x is equal to negative b over 2a. So just like with our first one here, this one, the x value of the vertex is still going to be the same value as our axis of symmetry. Whatever value we get here is going to be the same value here. And the f of negative b over 2a is going to make sense here in a minute. And the only other key point of interest is the y-intercept. Whatever the constant term is, the term without a variable, is the constant term, or is the y-intercept. Because y-intercept, the x value is 0, so the ax squared becomes 0, the bx becomes 0, all we're left with is c, the number without a variable. But I think it's going to make more sense if we look at an example of this here. So we have this equation here. F of x equals 3x squared minus 6x plus 1. We want to find the vertex and axis of symmetry. Now this compares to our general form. Ax squared plus bx plus c. A, B, and C are going to be numbers. A, B, and C, none of these three will contain a variable because we have ax squared. So the number in front of x squared is a. Bx, so the number in front of x is our b value. And the number without a variable is c. So for us here, a is 3. B is negative 6. And c is 1. That is a, b, and c. We won't have a being 3x squared. A is just the number because the variable is listed in the general form. So a is 3, b is negative 6, c is 1. And these are very helpful, especially the farther we go through the rest of the year, being able to identify a, b, and c with quadratics. Questions on what we've done so far? Vertex. Our vertex is the point, negative b over 2a, comma, f of negative b over 2a. That's our vertex, is the point negative b over 2a, comma, f of negative b over 2a. Now, before we focus too much on the f of negative b over 2a, let's have and look at negative b over 2a. That's what we're going to look at first. 2a. Yes?
So it'd be like -6 over 2 times 3.
So negative b over 2a. So negative, then we'll plug in b's value, which is -6, over 2 times 3. We plugged in the values of a and b. Questions on how we got to this point here? So what we have now is -6 over 2 times 3. Is there a variable in that statement? So is there anything restricting me from plugging that in exactly as it is in the calculator? No, we can plug it in at this point and get the answer. There's no reason we can't just plug it in. Because if we do this by hand, the -6 is just 6. 2 times 3 is 6. And 6 divided by 6 is 1. So the x value of the vertex is 1. Okay. We'll move on to the second part here in a second. Axis of symmetry, x is equal to -b over 2a, yes? Do we know what that is? ab over 2a is 1. So the axis of symmetry, x equals 1. So for this here, just by finding out the value of -b over 2a, we got half the vertex in the axis of symmetry. We're 2/3 of the way done. We just need to find the other value of the vertex, yes? Now it told us the other part is f of -b over 2a. Okay. F. Well, -b over 2a is 1. So it's asking what f of 1 is. Or another way to say this is, what is the value of this equation when we plug 1 in for x? So here, we're trying to find out what's the y value when x is 1. So f of -b over 2a, all that's saying is find what -b over 2a is, take that value, and plug it into the original equation. Plug it back in. So I took the, yeah, then we put it in. Because all I did was take that 1, plug it back into our 3x squared minus 6 plus 1. So, because it'd be 3 times 1, 6 times plus 1. Well, 3 times 1, as we already know, is 3. 3 minus 6 is -3 plus 1 is? No. Because when we add or subtract, we do it left to right. So addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, we do it left to right as it occurs. Is normally the way that that's done. So it'd be 3 minus 6, which is -3, plus 1 is -2. But it works out the same. Yes. So the y value of the vertex is -2. That's it. The notation for the vertex makes it look a little more daunting than it actually is. Because all it's saying is find -b over 2a, take that value, plug it back in, find the other value. Questions on this here? We're going to look at another one. ax squared plus bx plus c is the general form. We need to find the values of a, b, c. B is 2. C is -1. But A is 1. A, B, and C will always be the numbers in front of their corresponding variable. Because even though there's not a number written in front of x squared, it's understood to be 1. If it was just -x squared, it would be -1. Questions on how we found A, B, C? Axis of symmetry. So our vertex, again, is our negative b over 2a, comma f of negative b over 2a. Axis of symmetry, x is equal to negative b over 2a. So the first thing we need to find is
Negative 2 over 1.
Two times.
mhm,
2 times 1 is 2.
so we'd have negative 2 over 2 times 1, or negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1. So the x value of the vertex is, and the axis of symmetry is x is equal to negative 1. Now we need to plug that back into the original equation. So we'd have negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 minus 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2 minus 1. Questions on this here? You feel comfortable with this here? Because again, with this here and most of the rest of this chapter, is I would be sticking to these general forms, finding the given values and plugging them in. We'll look at this one here next. Negative 2x squared minus 8x plus 1. So I'll write the general form. X squared plus bx plus c.
B equals 2.
Almost. A is negative 2. B is
B is
negative 8. And C is
C.
1. Because we'll take the signs in front of each of the numbers. So the number and their sign, not the variable. The variable will not be a value for A, B, C. Just the numbers in front. And again, we're wanting to find the vertex and the axis of symmetry. And to find the vertex, we need to find the value of negative b over 2a. Well, 2a's negative 8, and a is negative 2. So we get negative 8 over 2 times negative 2. 2 times negative 2 would be negative 4. And negative 8 is 8. And 8 divided by negative 4 is negative 2. So we have the x value of the vertex, and we have the equation of the axis of symmetry. So x equals negative 2, and our negative 2. To find the y value of the vertex, we're going to take our x value of the vertex and plug it back in. And again, at this point here, we can plug that entire thing into the calculator. Doesn't matter which one, it just needs to be plugged into one of them. If we did this by hand, the first thing I would do is negative 2 squared. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. Negative 8 times negative 2 is going to be plus 16 plus 1. Negative 2 times 4 would be negative 8. 16 and 1 is 17. Tell us the y value is 9. And that's it. Questions on any of this here? we'll pick this up tomorrow. Mhm.